I'm exhausted. I don't know how much longer I can keep going. We see the end is imminent. When we hear lies about Jehovah, his organization, and those he's appointed to take the lead, we will not be shaken. Jehovah has lovingly provided a slave that's faithful and discreet. Therefore, we remain obedient and responsive to the direction we receive.
But when the pandemic hit, I knew the end was close. I started studying again and got baptized just in time. He said we should keep on the watch.
I think it's great you keeping the end close in mind.
Because of you and Linda. Both of you have shown me how close we really are.
We can all start thinking too much about when the end will come.
But I'm just being alert. Isn't that what you taught me to do?
Alert is good.
And if the end is really so far off, why did I need to change my life now?
We don't know when the end will come.
It is the 10th anniversary of JW Broadcasting, so we have a decade of Watchtower trying to use video propaganda in order to indoctrinate Jehovah's Witnesses around the world. So, what have they learned with all of this experience? Well, this episode will tell you everything that you need to know. So let's talk about it. I have watched almost every episode of JW Broadcasting, and there are certain archetypes to each episode. Some of them are blatantly boring and put you to sleep.
Welcome to JW Broadcasting.
12 seconds later.
But to succeed in life, and in Jehovah's eyes, it's necessary that we learn to train, develop, and guard.
Some episodes turn you into a pseudo-investigative journalist.
Anyone anointed after 1992 would be of the anointed, but he would not be part of this generation. And Jesus said, this generation will not pass away until all these things happen.
Others just absolutely enrage you.
To Satan's evil system of things coming to an abrupt end. The physical indications of Matthew chapter 24 and the bizarre temperament
and still others just make you want to get up and boogie.
When I drive my car or I take a train, there's an angry world out there. Each day arrives and so many lives have heavy loads to bear. Then Jehovah's words come back to me, be patient, calm and kind. And no matter where, say a silent prayer for a peaceful state of mind. Living peacefully in a peaceless world is easier said than done. But if you can do it now, just imagine how it'll feel when the new world comes.
And in this beautiful disaster, we get a little bit of everything. So let's do this.
Welcome to JW Broadcasting. This month marks 10 years since the first program debuted.
So after 10 years, we get a refreshed and redone intro. I don't know which one's better. I don't know which one's worse. I guess I like the new one because it's different. I usually skip it anyway, but if you have to put them side by side, back to back, I'm like, well, I guess the new one is a improvement. Is it a significant improvement? Not really. Does it really matter? No. But hey, comment down below. Which one do you think is better? Do you like that old school 2014 one, or do you like the new school 2024? I think I'm 2024 gang, but maybe that's just because at least they did something new.
When I first began serving at Bethel, I'd call home to speak with my family, and my mother would always ask, "Have they told you when the date of Armageddon is?" Though she was being humorous and didn't expect an answer, her question reveals what we all long for: Jehovah's promised new world. Maybe you have, in a sense, asked Jehovah that question. How much longer, Jehovah? Or said to Jehovah, I'm exhausted. I don't know how much longer I can keep going. Please, Jehovah, when will your promises for a world of lasting peace, refreshment, and relief from the pressures of this world come true?
If you've been watching my channel for a little while, you know that this is one of my favorite Mario Party mini games, looking at Watchtower solve problems that they create. If you go through the scriptures, you're not going to find any particular times or these prophecies about when the end is going to be. Of course, you have stuff in Revelation, but if you're going to apply that to the 21st century, you are going to have to extrapolate it from the scriptures, when the scriptures clearly say nobody knows the day or the hour. Just kind of keep on the watch or whatever. So when they are talking about, oh man, you're wondering how long, they are just addressing a problem that they create. And the funniest thing is, like, they try and shift it over, like, oh, I bet you're asking Jehovah this. Well, Jehovah isn't the one that disappointed you in the first place. Watchtower is. So you should be asking Watchtower, hey, how long are we going to keep this going? Sometimes I think Watchtower, they really think they're cooking up something good with their prophecies and reading into the Bible. They think they're Gordon Ramsay, but they're more like Gordon Lamsey. That was terrible. I should edit that out.
We all likely feel this way from time to time. What can help us not give up, not give out in our spiritual battle? We recognize Bible prophecies being fulfilled before our eyes. Our faith is fortified. We see the end is imminent. We recognize that we're almost done. That helps us not give out. What will help us to do this when we feel so exhausted? Where can we get strength to keep up the fight? In a word, trust. We've discussed one way we get ready for the upcoming events. Build our trust that Jehovah has loyal love for us individually. Trusting that Jehovah will never abandon us gives us the strength to keep up the fight and keep on the watch. At Ephesians 6:16, faith, or trust in Jehovah, is compared to a shield which you can extinguish all the wicked one's burning arrows, or all of Satan's spiritual attacks. For example, when we hear lies about Jehovah, his organization, and those he's appointed to take the lead, we will not be shaken. We won't give up or give out.
So, in order to not give up in your spiritual fight, you need to remember just how close the end is, which is going to be a little bit funny because they're going to have a video that's going to kind of contradict this point just a little bit later, but we'll tackle that when we get there. But here he's saying, hey, just remember, look at all these prophecies. They're being fulfilled. There's wars, there's earthquakes, their world, it's global warming. Everything's going terrible. The world is going to be uninhabitable pretty soon, according to scientists. Using all of this language, and this is meant to be a scare tactic, essentially. Hey, why would you want to give up right now? You fought so long, you may as well fight a little bit longer. And then he goes on to talk about trust. Now, this trust is going to help you because it's going to be a protective shield for you. Shield you from what, you might ask? Well, attacks against Jehovah, which I don't know how many people are just out there. I guess maybe they're talking about atheism and people just not believing in God in general. So if you hear any arguments against faith, you'll be protected because you'll have this trust. And if you hear anything negative about the organization itself or the people leading the organization. So this is just reinforcement. Essentially, let's reinforce the idea that anytime you hear anything negative, you correlate that to apostate lies, correlate that to something that cannot be trusted. We can trust that Jehovah will provide for us. We can trust in Jehovah's love. We can trust that God will always be there for us. And then transitioning that right into how that will protect you from these things. You'd have to be pretty thick in the head if you're the governing body and don't think that Jehovah's Witnesses are hearing some of the things that come up from ex-Jehovah's Witness or the media. So they're just trying to prepare people to hear that. So this trust is essentially a shield for people's minds, which when you actually look at this from the outside in, it is baffling that people will just nod along to this, because the idea of someone telling you, no, just have trust. That will be like a protective shield if you ever hear anything negative. It is the most culty sounding thing. And yet to a Jehovah's Witness, this is just a Tuesday afternoon. It's not that big of a deal. So it's always a bit strange whenever they have these super culty things said in such a casual way.
We know the prophecy at Matthew 24:45 has been fulfilled. Jehovah has lovingly provided a slave that's faithful and discreet. We recognize that Jehovah provides spiritual food and direction through this body of men at the right time. We're not left floundering or trying to find our way. Therefore, we remain obedient and responsive to the direction we receive. We never dismiss it, even if it doesn't appear practical from a human standpoint.
Watchtower has brought out an old friend of ours. Listen to the governing body even if it doesn't make sense. They have said this so many times. They have printed it in so many different Watchtowers. I've talked about it so many different times. We don't need to do like a full breakdown of all the times they've mentioned it in the past. But they love to just come out right there and say it. We have to trust the governing body, even if it doesn't make sense. Now, normally, okay, cool, they said it again. But this time, it has a different meaning, at least from my perspective, because of what was said at the annual meeting. Now, I don't know if this was intentional, and I am fairly confident that this will get edited out whenever they release this to the public, because I don't think they thought it all the way through. So let's take a listen to one of the faithful and discreet slave, a governing body member, and listen to what he had to say about the adjustments that the organization makes.
And quoting Jehovah himself, Malachi 3 and verse 6 says, "I am Jehovah, I do not change." So then, Jehovah doesn't change, and his standards as to what is right and wrong have not changed. That is why recent adjustments to our view of God's mercy are just that. Adjustments to our view or understanding.
So, out of the horse's mouth, when they make adjustments to their thinking, it's just that. They're adjusting the way they think, but God's standards remain the same. So what he just told the entire organization of Jehovah's Witnesses around the world, or at least those that are listening to it, is that God's thinking is consistent, and any adjustments that are made are just the vacillating mindset of the governing body. So then you have to answer the question, what is the evidence that, as this guy says, old Troy, how is it that God is using this governing body? What is the evidence for it? If they themselves say, hey, we just make adjustments based off of God doesn't tell us, hey, you need to make these adjustments. God isn't the one making the adjustments to the organization. It's just them making stuff up. That's why I think they'll edit this out, because it would be incredibly stupid. If I was on their PR team, I'd be like, whoa, no way, Jose, we are not putting that on the final cut. Because someone out there will think to themselves, wait, so all you're doing when you're making these adjustments, you're not listening to the Spirit, the Holy Spirit whispering in your ear. You're not praying deeply and doing a deep dive into the study. You're not even saying that this is Jehovah making adjustments to the organization. You're saying it's just you changing your mind. So whenever they bring this out, it has a special significance for me now because of what was said at the annual meeting.
Trusting Jehovah includes trusting his representatives. The life-saving direction we receive from Jehovah's organization may not appear practical from a human standpoint, but we recognize the fulfillment of the prophecy at Matthew 24:45 about the faithful and discreet slave, and we're ready to obey any instruction they provide. Yes, getting ready includes building trust and being convinced that Jehovah will deliver us from the wicked one. Trusting him will help us understand the prophetic role of the faithful and discreet slave during this time of the end, when Jehovah is using them to provide life-saving direction. This direction is helping us to stay ready. Many of you have been fighting to keep on the watch for many years. Now the end is clearly in sight. We don't want to give up now. Your fight has not been in vain. You've made the right choices. Jehovah has seen your loyal love for him, and he treasures your devotion. Whether we're young or old or in between, we will not give up. We're so close. We see these things happening with our own eyes. So we'll keep on the watch. We'll trust Jehovah with all our hearts. We'll trust Jehovah's arrangements, and we will not give out in our spiritual battle, because we will reap rich blessings soon, very soon.
What a fascinating time to be alive. Here you have the duality of man right in front of our eyes. He has to acknowledge that there has been decades, people that have been serving the organization for a very long time, and they just need to keep on fighting, just hold on a little bit longer, the end is so close. Has to do the normal song and dance. And he's also having to talk about, oh, we can trust the organization because God's using them. But these two things just cannot coexist. You know, you cannot have these two things come out of your mouth and think, yes, everything's fine here. Because to trust the organization for years and years and years would have meant that you could have seen just how pointless trusting them was. If you were a Jehovah's Witness and have been one since the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, you have this mountain of doctrines that is now defunct. They just swept it under the rug and said, nah, that's not real anymore. So anyone that was living through those that long ago or has been a Jehovah's Witness for that long, they have direct experience that tells them trusting in Watchtower is a waste of time. And now he just has to placate them and say, well, it's not really a waste of time. It hasn't all been for naught because Jehovah appreciates it. Imagine your entire life, your everything that you believe in and stand for, the sum total as you're aging and think, what have I done with my life? What has my life amounted to? And when you think that and you're like, wow, pretty much nothing now because the end is still not here. And the only thing that you get is some reassurance from Troy Snyder, who is talking to you through your television screen and saying, hey, bub, appreciate your efforts, and God appreciates it too, so hang in there. So it's a really fascinating time as they try and make this transition of talking about, oh man, the end, it's so close, it's right near, hang on a little bit longer. But then at the annual meeting, they're talking to young ones and how they can plan their entire lives in this system of things. So they're at this weird moment where they're just having to speak out of both sides of their mouth. Like it's before they're going to move away from the generation teaching and all of that. So they're still kind of sort of talking about it, but also trying to move in a different direction. So, hey, I'm here for it.
In the next video, we will be reminded of some gems we've received, and we'll hear personal stories that illustrate the impact JW Broadcasting has had on the Brotherhood.
we warmly welcome you, dear brothers and sisters, for our first JW Broadcasting monthly program.
Christian neutrality, modesty.
Do the math.
These nuts. Got him!
Jehovah loves each one of us, despite our appearances, our imperfections.
A marriage that has good patterns, shaped by Jehovah's principles, looks like this well-balanced family circle.
Though we're tainted with sin, Jehovah does not discard imperfect humans.
You get the hugs. I love hugs.
Each individual grain of sand reveals distinct beauty. That is how Jehovah sees each of you.
My personal favorite thing about JW Broadcasting has to be that there are videos on really anything, whether it's something to help me in school or something to help me in my spiritual life.
We like to theme our family worship. Recently, we did a family worship on neutrality, and we found a lot of great videos that have specifically to do with that.
I use my device quite a bit, and I don't like it to get in the way of schoolwork and family time. So the video has really helped me manage my screen time so it doesn't come in the way of those things.
Being able to see brothers and sisters from all over the world, all different ages, all different backgrounds, serving Jehovah, it's helped me personally, but I think it's really helped the kids in setting their own spiritual goals and being able to see that there's so much that can be done in Jehovah's organization.
Now, I'm a sucker for a good compilation. I like looking back at something, whether it's a TV show, you look back at the funniest moments, whatever the case might be. I even make a lot of compilations. I've even done it with my channel. What have we done in the last 3 years? This had to be the worst compilation ever. It's so boring and stale. Like, oh man, we've been here for 10 years. Look at some of the stuff. Now, I did not include, yes, the D's nuts and the hugs. That was me. But I did not include him doing the bread. Literally the worst illustration in the history of JW Broadcasting. They put that in there. That really blew my mind. I was like, wait. I think I recently made fun of that video because of how stupid it was, and how when I was a witness and I watched it, it's like it woke me up. Like, seeing things like that were what woke me up, and yet they are proud of it. So man, what evidence of just how completely out of touch with reality some of the decision makers in Watchtower HQ are. Recently I did an experiment to prove just how little spiritual food Jehovah's Witnesses are getting nowadays, and it was shocking. The difference of time it took to read every Watchtower and Awake from 1995 versus 2024 was something like 12 hours versus 100 hours. It was bonkers. And that doesn't even factor that they got a yearbook and a study publication to go along with that, as well as they were also producing movies and documentaries and stuff back then, as well as audio cassette Bible dramas. There was a lot of information. Now, something that I haven't talked about, but is all equally funny, is the exact same thing is happening right now when it comes to JW Broadcast. So when the JW Broadcasting first started, they had 12 JW broadcasts per year. You got one from January all the way to December. And then they started to scale that back a little bit and started uploading the annual meeting for 1 month. And then they started adding in a Gilead graduation. So now instead of making 12 per year, they were making 11 and then 10. And then they started adding multiple Gilead graduations. And so they went from 10 down to 9. And then they started doing double annual meetings. So now their general pattern is to do 2 annual meetings and 2 Gilead graduations. So they're down to 8. So they used to make 12 broadcasts per month, and now they're down to 8. Even in their video production, they are scaling that down. And I don't want to hear it if you're saying, oh, well, I mean, there's uploading something, so there is a broadcast that month. No, it's not additional spiritual food, because they were already doing the Gilead graduation. They were already doing the annual meeting. Now they're just uploading it. So it's the most lazy way to go about providing spiritual food with people because it's just recycled. So they're just like, okay, you little birdies, open up. Mama Watchtower is going to chew some spiritual food for you and spit it into your mouths.
We felt the support of the Holy Spirit and felt the kindness and help from the governing body during the pandemic.
Now we're moving right along here so we don't have another 2-hour video. We already did that once this week, but I just wanted to include this little bit because it is so funny how ubiquitous them praising the governing body directly is in JW broadcasts or really in any of their videos or talks nowadays.
Have you ever watched the news and thought, is this it? Is this the beginning of the Great Tribulation? In a previous episode of Apply Bible Principles, James and Linda learned to change their focus and maintain joy. Now they'll help a young brother do the same.
I've known James and Linda, well, forever. They were there when my family fell away. When I fell away. I knew it was the truth. I just wanted more.
So we get an update on a previous protagonist from the JW broadcasting. I have no idea why I just had a Mitch McConnell moment there. Whatever, it's fine. We'll keep it in there. Anyway, so this couple, they were struggling with waiting for the end. They were getting a little bit impatient. When is the end going to be? And they put their life on hold when they wanted to have children or I can't remember exactly everything, but I think it was involving like a career and having kids. They were putting those things on hold. And because they were struggling with this, an older Jehovah's Witness came and told his story and said, hey, look at me from my experience. I've waited all this time. You can as well. So now they're showing the cycle continue where they put their entire life on hold and now they are trying to indoctrinate another young person as well. So it's funny because it's something I've been talking about a lot lately and how we're in a unique position for Watchtower history where we have essentially 2 full generations of people that have gone from cradle to grave waiting for the end. And now when they try to pitch this to another generation of people, it looks properly insane. So for someone my age, it just is baffling that my family, like my brother, for instance, he has watched our grandparents, live their entire life for the organization, and now my grandparents are starting to die off. Now he's watching my parents. My parents are getting older. They're not going to be alive. And is he thinking to himself, yeah, I guess, I'm just watching these sheep jump off of a cliff. I look down at the bottom of the cliff and there's a pile of bones and dead sheep. I guess I'll just jump as well. It is such a fascinating time to be an ex-Jehovah's Witness and sort of watching what they're doing because in previous times, yes, there's all the doctrinal stuff, and yes, there's a lot of controversies and scandals and doctrinal changes, and all of these things that are reasons why someone could leave. But just the fact that you have seen other people, other sheep jump off of this cliff, and you're looking at that pile of dead sheep and saying, yeah, that's what I want for me. And you know what, kids? Load the kids up in the back of the minivan as well, because they're going to come along with us. It is a very odd thing to witness. But anyway, I digress a little bit here. So we see someone that is falling out of the truth. Their parents had already done it, but here James and Linda, or I can't remember his name. Anyway, they're trying to encourage him to come back to Jehovah. So let's see what happens.
But when the pandemic hit, I knew the end was close. I started studying again and got baptized just in time.
He keeps passing this blog information and asking for everyone's opinion.
I saw it.
It's the third one this week.
I'll talk to him. He just needs to verify his sources.
He just needs to verify his sources. Jehovah's Witnesses don't take those words literally. It is a euphemism for that's probably from apostate stuff. Unless it comes right from the organization, then that's just from apostates and we shouldn't look at it. Now, if you don't like me going to storytelling mode, skip ahead about 4 minutes because I'm going to tell a little bit of a story just to solidify how Jehovah's Witnesses brains work with respect to this verifying of sources and how verifying the source does not matter at all. So, skip ahead 4 minutes. For those of you that stuck around, hi, my name is Wally. Probably wondering how I got here right now. So, I never went to school. I've never stepped foot in any formal education institution of any kind ever. Okay? So, when I was a older teenager in my, I was like 17, 18, 19 and was really developing a portal into this big wide world of knowledge that I had never had before. And that was just through book reading. And I was just obsessed. You would never find me without a book in my hand or in my back pocket or in my backpack. I always had a book. And throughout just finding different things to read about and learn, I discovered the essays of Francis Bacon. And they were some of my absolute favorite thought-provoking essays I had ever come across. Now, mind you, this is fairly early in my reading, but I was trying to catch up and whatnot. But I just want to read you something that has stuck with me, and it really stuck out to me at the time because it was challenging my Jehovah's Witness brain to do something it had never done before. So just a little bit more context. I'm a very paranoid person. My brain is always going and thinking about 100 different things all the time. That's why sometimes my videos, I can be a little bit rambly and it's like, what is he even talking about? My brain is just always going at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And this causes a lot of paranoia. If you think about a lot of things, the world's a really messed up place. You're going to be really paranoid. But anyway, I probably should have prepared this. But I was reading. This is just embarrassing now. Yeah, 129. That wasn't actually too bad. Francis Bacon had an essay on suspicion. And these words really changed my life. I'll skip ahead here. For commonly they are not admitted, but with examination they be likely, or no. But in fearful natures they gain ground too fast. There is nothing makes a man suspect much, more than to know little, and therefore men should remedy suspicion by procuring to know more, and not to keep their suspicions in smother. There is nothing that makes a man suspect much, more than to know little, and therefore men should remedy suspicion by procuring to know more. These simple words really revolutionized my life, even as a Jehovah's Witness, because after I read that and thought about it, I had determined I wasn't going to be afraid of information, because that would help alleviate this constant paranoia to the point where I would only sleep for a couple hours every night just because I'm constantly suspicious and paranoid. And this really propelled me to continue in educating myself and learning as much as I possibly could. And the more I learned, the less paranoid and suspicious I became. So that's one part of this. It will all make sense here in a second. So now I'm at a Starbucks out in service, and I'm just, waiting for everyone to get their coffees and whatnot. And someone walks up to me in the parking lot and says, "Oh, hey, you're a Jehovah's Witness, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah." And then they talks about how he was a Jehovah's Witness when he grew up, and that he hadn't been to meetings in a long time. And there was just some things that he couldn't really deal with. And that's why he kind of left. It was just some things that didn't make sense to him. So I was like, "Oh, okay, well, what is it?" And he's like, "Have you ever heard of Beth Sarim?" And I was like, "Why are you speaking some voodoo language? Did you just pronounce a curse on me, dog? Like, what is this? Did you just hoodwink me?" And he's like, No, just look it up." And I'm like, "Well, what is it?" He's like, "No, I'm not going to tell you. Just look it up." Now, I think a lot of times a Jehovah's Witness will hear those words and they'll think, "Oh man, this guy's probably saying something apostate." And therefore they don't do this, what the video says, verify the source. They say, "Oh, the source is an apostate, so I'm just going to shut off and never think about the words Beth Sarim ever again." But I was trying to find the remedy for my constant paranoia and suspicion, and that was through knowledge. If you're paranoid a lot, you need to know more. So I went and found in the back of the old JV book, as we used to call it, and I went to the index under B, hold please, and I found this little thing saying Beth Sarim, page 76. So I was like, okay, I think we're cooking with fire here. And here's the paragraph. It says, "A few years after Brother Rutherford's death, the board of directors of the Watchtower Society decided to sell Beth Sarim. Why? The Watchtower of December 15th, 1947 explained it had fully served its purpose and was not only serving as a monument quite expensive to keep. Our faith in the return of men of old time, whom the King Christ Jesus will make princes in all the earth, not merely in California, is based not upon that house Beth Sarim, but upon God's word of promise." So clearly, and then there's a little thing. Sorry. A little bit here. "At that time, it was believed that faithful men of old times, such as Abraham, Joseph, and David, would be resurrected before the end of the system of things and would serve as princes in all the earth, in fulfillment of Psalm 45:16. So, someone mentioned this to me, and in normal moods, I suppose I would have just discounted this as coming from apostate sources. Now the source was a Jehovah's Witness book, and now I'm faced with this really interesting moment. Hold on. They used to think that Joseph and Abraham and Isaac would be resurrected in California, and that there was a house that apparently was expensive that was built there so he could house them. And I thought this was like really crazy stuff. So when I was cart witnessing, I brought this up to someone and I said, no, it's in this book right here. You should look at it. And they refused to believe that it even existed. They refused to look at their own literature because it sounds so crazy that Pastor or Brother Rutherford had built a house in California so he could hang out with David and Job and Abel. Like, that sounds properly crazy, and I thought it was crazy, and I thought it would make for interesting conversation. You're standing at a cart doing cart witnessing for 8 hours straight. You got to talk about something. And then I remembered what I read in that Francis Bacon. That is the typical Jehovah's Witness way of looking at the world, and how miserable it is, because it keeps you in this constant state of suspicion and paranoia, because information is considered something dangerous.
Did you get a chance to read the links I sent you?
Of course I read it.
And?
It's exciting to think we could be so close.
And when you watch the news, you realize it could be any day now.
What's all the excitement?
The cry of peace and security.
Thanks again for sharing.
See you.
Tulani, remember Jesus said, no one knows the day or hour.
But he said we should keep on the watch.
I think it's great you keeping the end close in mind.
Because of you and Linda. Both of you have shown me how close we really are.
I have to take this quickly, but I'll see you on Friday. I saw what was happening in the world, and you both helped me put it all together.
We just want to be sure you are focused on the right things.
We can all start thinking too much about when the end will come.
But I'm just being alert. Isn't that what you taught me to do?
Alert is good.
And if the end is really so far off, why did I need to change my life now?
So, the broadcast kicks off with a Watchtower representative saying you can draw strength to endure to the end by looking around you and seeing how close you are to the end. Jump forward 30 minutes into the broadcast, and now we're getting this example of someone looking at things happening in the world and being alert, oh man, the end must be really close, and yet now it's seen as bad. Why is it okay for Watchtower to point to all the things happening in the world as a sign that the end is so close, and yet when an ordinary Jehovah's Witness does the exact same thing, now he needs to be checked? Whoa, 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 hey, easy there, bud. We don't want to be getting ahead of ourselves. Why are you worrying about exactly when the end is going to come? He is just imitating Watchtower. And this is a fascinating example of Watchtower essentially saying that they are just on a different level. You do as I say, not as I do. So the members of Jehovah's Witnesses have to sit there like little baby birds and just wait for the governing body to chew up all the news information and then spit it into their mouths. This was like one of the more depressing drama series that they've ever had in a JW broadcasting, because it starts with this couple being younger, being convinced to put their life on hold and wait for Jehovah. And now they're older and they're trying to tell someone else to put their life on hold and wait for Jehovah. Is this going to be the never-ending series where they just, okay, now let's show this guy as he's older and he's trying to, like, how far are they going to keep this thing going? It's so sad and depressing that they are not allowed to think for themselves. Don't speculate about when the end might come. Don't even think about it. Have you thought for a second that it might be a healthy mental exercise not to just take the information given to you right in front of you? Have you ever thought that it might be a good mental exercise to think outside of the paradigm box that you're in and find creative solutions? Have you ever thought that speculation is a really good thing for your life? And you should probably do it every single day because it's going to help you tackle problems creatively. It's going to help you to look at situations and circumstances in unique ways, and you might just come across an answer to a question or a solution to a problem that you hadn't thought about before. But boy howdy, if you do the same damn thing over and over again and you only look at the thing right in front of your face, you'll never grow as a person. You just won't. This whole idea that Watchtower has that no, we don't want any Jehovah's Witnesses to start speculating about the same things that we're telling them, it just hinders people, and it really pisses me off that they're holding people back. I just wish that every Jehovah's Witness could just live in the normal world for a week and realize it's okay to ask questions. It is okay to try and find creative solutions to problems that are right in front of you. It is okay to reject this thing that is told to you as a fact that's just put in front of you as a blinder. And it's okay to ask the question, well, what's behind the thing that you're putting in front of me? That is okay. So please, if you're a Jehovah's Witness and you just randomly happened to stumble upon this stupid video and you've made it past me dancing and telling weird stories, if you've made it this far, just remember, when Watchtower tells you to verify sources and to not be too concerned about exactly when the end is going to be, basically they're telling you, hey, stop using your mind. Just remember that learning how to effectively speculate every single day in your life will almost immediately improve it, because you will start finding creative solutions that you didn't otherwise think, and you'll stop repeating the same mistakes because you'll be thinking in unique and different ways. Anyway, that was a good hearty rant from Wally. We haven't had one of those in a while. Woo-wee!
You are asking the right questions. There was a moment in our lives when we focused too much on the when rather than the why we were serving Jehovah. It affected our zeal, our happiness, our perspective. And we'd never want that for you.
This is the answer.
This is the answer. This is the answer. I cut it out from the talk earlier, but he kept repeating this frustrating phrase where he would be like, oh, the earthquakes that we see this happening. You see this happening. He said it like 5 or 6 times. And being a Jehovah's Witness is all about groupthink. Here's the answer. Here's what we think. Don't we feel this way? Being a normal person is all about rejecting that groupthink and saying, well, that is a answer. That could be a answer. That's a potential answer. And here's 50 others. Now, let's wade through these 50 others and kind of let it ride and see what happens. There are certain things in life that are just facts, right? There are certain things you're not going to go and leave your house through your 2nd story window because you're going to break your leg, right? There are certain things that we just have to accept as facts. But remember, there are things in your life that you consider to be a fact. Even if you are a Jehovah's Witness watching this, remember that you considered it to be a fact that according to the Bible, you couldn't have a beard. That according to the Bible, you had to fill out your service report. That according to the Bible, once the Great Tribulation started, no one could become a Jehovah's Witness after that moment. There's all these things that you used to consider a fact, and now it just isn't. So remember that going forward and think to yourself, maybe the world doesn't always have to be black and white. This is true. This is that. This is false. He is wrong. She is bad. He is good. He is great. It doesn't have to be that way. The world is a giant old mixed bag of everything. And you kind of just move with the flow. And you don't have to be rigid or stubborn in the way you think. So if you hear someone saying, well, this is the answer, as if it could be the only possible answer to the question, I tend to think that they're wrong. And there are times when, everyone's guilty of this, where we think, hey, this thing is the answer, and it just turns out to be wrong. And that's okay too. You can have an opinion. But my Lord, this groupthink, I just get done ranting about it, and then they come in. This is the answer. It is so annoying to listen to.
Since all these things are to be dissolved in this way, consider what sort of people you ought to be in holy acts of conduct and deeds of godly devotion.
We don't know when the end will come. Could be tomorrow. Could take a little longer. But what matters is the kind of person we are when it comes. So focus on your love for Jehovah, His organization, His work. Take the excitement you have and direct it the right way.
And now, what else but to encourage this young man to do with his life other than help with construction projects? And since we're here talking about construction projects, I have to just talk about something that's been on my mind. When they are using this expression that they did bring up here about we might get instructions that don't make sense from a human standpoint. This is me just out there in left field again. But I try and close my eyes and picture, as I imagine all of you guys do as well, what the heck do they mean by that? What does that even look like? What does that mean? What are they preparing Jehovah's Witnesses to do? Because I don't see a scenario where they're going to ask them to like drink the Kool-Aid or something like that. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. Hey, quit your job, sell your houses, buy RVs. We're all going to Utah. I don't think it's going to be anything that drastic or dramatic. And so the only thing I can think of is it a response to why the organization continues to plan for the future when they say that the end is right around the corner? That's a pretty simple, easy answer, but it might be kind of close to what they're actually getting on about. Because I think Jehovah's Witnesses are going to be scratching their heads and saying, okay, we're not seeing a lot of actual growth, and yet we're always talking about and doing these building projects, but building for what? We're getting less spiritual food as time goes on. Building for what? We have less people coming into the organization. Building for what? At a certain point, that would stop making sense from a quote-unquote human standpoint. Why are we building new facilities and new things for growth that isn't there when the end is so close? Hey, Watchtower, gotta hand it to you. That doesn't make sense from a human standpoint. From a business standpoint or a financial standpoint, it makes sense, but not from a human, stupid little human standpoint. So I'm just curious what you guys think they actually mean by that, because my personal hypothesis here is that they're just talking about a response to people asking, why are we doing so many building projects when the end is right around the corner? Because that is a fairly obvious question that I think they get pretty often. But anyway, let me know what you guys think.
My dad sold the house to buy musical instruments so that us children could become great artists. And we achieved just that. We made it to the top. My dancing style became so famous that they would advertise with only a picture of me. Wherever they put that image, everyone knew Los Rosario would be there.
Y ahora, todas las chicas como Francis Rosario.
He realized that true happiness comes from serving the Creator, Jehovah God. It reminded me of the words of the Apostle Paul at Philippians 3:8. He said that he considered what he did before as a lot of refuse. We felt the same. We were willing to leave everything behind. After a concert, there was that emptiness inside. It's so different to the way I feel after a meeting with the brothers and sisters.
Francis doesn't focus on what could have been, but on the blessings of the present.
Another truly pathetic Watchtower life story. This woman sacrifices everything, gives up her whole career, her dream, the fame, the fortune, the recognition, everything, and becomes a Jehovah's Witness. And all she has to show for it is that, man, I'm happy. it's really strange to hear, especially after getting done reading how they told experiences back in the 90s when everything was results. You could point to the results. Hey, we made this sacrifice, but this sacrifice is tiny in comparison to all the lives we saved because of this sacrifice. Now what they show is, hey, people made this sacrifice and they're smiling about it. It's very, very weird. And yeah, it doesn't have the same power and effect anymore. But hey, you know what also doesn't have the same power and effect anymore? Me, because I'm tired and I'm still battling sickness and I can't do this JW broadcast anymore. But we made it through another one. I hope you guys did enjoy this. With all of that being said, stay safe, be kind, and don't forget to show yourself the same kindness that you show to others. And why not? Let's hear it one last time.
It'll feel when the new world comes.
Now go and have a good ass day.